Welcome to Dr. Pam Unleashed, where we skip the gimmicks and get real about what helps pets actually thrive. I'm Dr. Pam, functional medicine vet, symptom decoder, and your guide to a vibrant, no BS pet care. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Dr. Pam Unleashed and to Power to the Puppy, Building a Foundation. I'm Dr. Pam, and if you caught episode 1, you already know we're not here to talk about cute puppy things. We're here to talk about the things that actually matter. Today we're talking about food. And I know you've heard me say that nutrition is the center of everything. You've probably heard a lot of people say it. I want to show you today why that's not just a talking point, why it's actually the most important decision you will make for your puppy, and why consequences of getting it wrong don't just show up in this dog, they echo forward. Stick with me on this one, it's going to shift some things. Nutrition is the center of the universe, and here's why. Every system in the body runs on what you feed it: immune function, gut health, brain development, hormone balance, cellular repair, bone density, coat quality, energy, mood. All of it, every single bit of it, is downstream of nutrition. This isn't just a functional medicine opinion, it's basic biology. You cannot build a healthy body out of poor raw materials any more than you can build a solid house out of wet cardboard. The materials matter. They have always mattered. And yet the most common thing I see walk through my door is a dog that's been fed the same ultra-processed, corn-based, shelf-stable kibble its entire life, sometimes for generations. And people are genuinely surprised when things start going wrong. I'm not surprised, and after today, you won't be either. Generational health, the thread from episode 1. In episode 1, we talked about epigenetics, the idea that what your puppy's parents ate, how they lived, and what they were exposed to, all of it gets carried forward in ways that go beyond simple genetics. The blueprint, aka genetics, matters, but so is all the raw materials the blueprint is built in. Today, that concept gets a proof story, the most compelling one I know, and it's been sitting in the scientific literature since 1942, the Pottenger cat study. In 1932, a physician named Dr. Francis Pottenger Jr. was working with laboratory cats, using them to standardize the potency of an adrenal extract he was producing. The cats had their adrenal glands removed as part of the process, and Pottenger was trying to keep them in the best possible health beforehand. So when he fed them what he considered, by the experts of that day, to be an optimal diet, raw milk, cod liver oil, and cooked meat scraps like liver, tripe, sweetbreads, brains, heart, and muscle, the best of the best by the 1930 standards, and yet his cats kept dying at an unusually high rate after routine surgery. Reproductive capacity was declining. Kittens were being born with skeletal deformities and organ malfunctions. He couldn't explain it. He was doing everything right by the book, or so he thought. And then something happened that had absolutely nothing to do with science. His neighbors kept donating more and more feral cats, and he ran out of cooked meat scraps. So he ordered raw meat from a local packing plant, organs, muscle, and bone, and fed it to a different group simply because he had to follow them as a separate cohort. Within months, that group looked completely different. Healthier, more rigorous kittens, lower post-operative death rates. He hadn't set out to prove anything, and that was not the study's purpose, but he couldn't ignore what he was seeing. He did what any good scientist does. He designed a controlled experiment to find out why. 900 cats, 10 years, 1932 to 42. He called the two groups exactly what they were. The normals, cats that were on a fully raw diet, raw meat, raw milk, and cod liver oil, and the deficient group, cats on the cooked meat scraps along with the raw milk and the cod liver oil. Only one variable, cooked versus raw. The normals thrived, healthy, reproductively sound, structurally normal, normal lifespans, generation after generation after generation. The deficient group told a way different story. The first generation of the deficient cats developed diseases and illnesses, but these were late in life, which was not alarming on its own. The second generation developed the same diseases, but in the middle of their lives, earlier than it should have happened. The third generation started showing disease and degeneration at the very beginning of their lives. Many died before 6 months of age. And guess what? There was no fourth generation. None. The third generation was largely sterile, and in the few pregnancies that occurred, the offspring did not survive. 4 generations, extinct. Diet, cooked versus raw, was the only variable. Here's the part I think about constantly, because I have literally seen this action over time in veterinary medicine. First generation, disease late in life. Second generation, disease in the middle of life. Third generation, disease at the beginning of life. Fourth generation, no survivors. I've been doing this long enough to have watched this evolve over the decades. Not reading about it, not hearing about it secondhand, watched it generation after generation of patients over years and years. The dogs coming through my door now, the 4-year-olds with cancer, the 2-year-olds with autoimmune disease, the puppies with skin allergies, they didn't appear out of nowhere. It's scary when you think about it. Where do you think we go from here? But here's the detail that really got under my skin the first time I sat with this study. It wasn't the fourth generation, although that was profound. It was the first. Just one generation on a processed diet turned perfectly formed and healthy pink gums into crooked, deformed dental arches with inflamed, unhealthy gums. Significant reproductive issues. One generation. The structure changes were visible and measurable after a single generation of processed food. That's mind-blowing. Dr. Pottenger noticed something else too. The cats on the processed food develop many of the same degenerative diseases we see in modern medicine: heart disease, thyroid dysfunction, skeletal deformities, reproductive failures, behavioral changes. The females became more aggressive and the males became more docile. The physical distinction between male and female became increasingly difficult to determine by the third generation. He was careful to say he was not drawing direct conclusions about human health, but he did note, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the similarities were so obvious the parallel picture would suggest themselves. I'll let you sit with that one for a moment. What modern research is starting to confirm. Pottenger's work was done in 1942. For decades, it was dismissed, minimized, or simply ignored by an industry with significant financial interest in you believing that a bag of corn-based kibble is a complete and balanced diet. In our field, we thought we would never see another study like this. It was time-consuming, expensive, and corporate interest simply would not be served. But the science keeps coming. More recently, a year-long metabolic study was done out of Cornell University. Yes, sponsored by the farmer's dog, and yes, I'll let you factor that in. It found that switching senior dogs from kibble to fresh, minimally processed food processed rapid and measurable metabolic changes. I see this every day when I change a diet. These pets had lower levels of compounds linked to aging and chronic disease, along with improved markers for muscle health, neurologic function, and antioxidant defense. After just 1 month. When industry-funded research confirms what whole food advocates have been saying for decades, that's worth paying attention to. And when the kibble industry pushes back on that research, which they did loudly and quickly, it's worth asking, who benefits from you not believing it? Science Diet built a business on the back of veterinary school partnerships and corporate sponsorships. DCM, or dilatative cardiomyopathy, and the grain-free debate showed us just what happens when profit margins get threatened by inconvenient data. This is not a new playbook. If you don't know about that particular scandal, I have a dedicated episode on the grain-free diet DCM debacle. I'm not here to sell you a specific food. I'm here to tell you that what you put in your puppy's bowl from day one matters more than almost any other decision that you will make for them. And that processed, heat-treated, corn-based food has a track record, and Pottenger documented it, that you deserve to know about. So, what do you actually feed them? Here's what I want to land on with this. I'm not going to tell you there's one right food for every pet and everything else is wrong. That's not how I practice, and that's not how nutrition works. What I am going to tell you is there are principles, and if you hold on to these principles, you can navigate the noise. Principle 1, real food is always better than processed food, always. A diet built around whole, recognizable ingredients, meats, organs, vegetables, appropriate fats, is going to outperform a diet built around rendered protein meal, corn syrup solids, and artificial preservatives. Every time. Principle 2, the closer to raw, the better the nutritional integrity. High heat processing destroys enzyme. It degrades certain vitamins and amino acids. It creates compounds like advanced glycation end products, or the AGEs, that are linked to inflammation and accelerated aging. The less processing, the more of the good stuff survives into the bowl. But not every dog is a raw food dog. You have to meet them where their digestion is. That's why lightly cooked diets were born. Principle 3, in real food feeding, variety matters. No single food provides everything. Rotating proteins, incorporating different vegetables, adding appropriate whole food supplements, that's how you build nutritional breadth over time. But if you did that in a kibble diet, what happens? They get diarrhea and vomiting. Think about that. And principle 4, start now, not when they get sick, not when the blood work starts drifting, now, because the foundation you build in puppyhood sets the health trajectory for everything that comes after. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. Pottenger showed us in 900 cats over 10 years that what we feed has consequences that extend far beyond the individual animal in front of us, that the effects of nutrition compound across generations, that the degeneration does not announce itself all at once. It creeps forward generation by generation, each one a little worse than the last. I call this the Pottenger effect. Once you understand it, it changes how you look at everything, your dog, your own family, and the patterns playing out all around us. But here's the other thing Pottenger showed us. When the processed food cats, the deficient cats, were switched back to raw, whole food diets, it took about 4 generations to fully reverse the damage. 4 generations to degenerate, 4 generations to recover. And that's not a reason to despair. That's a reason to start now. Because every generation you build well is a generation moving in the right direction. This is where breeders could have the most immense impact. The next episode, we're getting into the gut. Because what you feed is only part of the story. What they can actually absorb and use is the other part. And the microbiome your puppy develops in those first few weeks and months, it sets the stage for immune function, brain health, and disease resistance for the rest of their lives. That one is going to surprise you. I'm Dr. Pam, functional medicine veterinarian and founder of Revitalizing Pet Care in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The pocket guide for this episode is waiting for you in the hero.fm app. Finish the episode and it unlocks automatically. Until next time, keep asking why.